Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Association Podcast. Today, episode number 50. We are excited to join our special guest, Tom Lyons, the Chief Information Officer at the American Society for Microbiology. Tom, thanks so much for being here with us.
Yeah, happy to be here and celebrate your 50th. An opportunity. Came on board at a time when they had expectations of trying to shift a lot of things and how they were leveraging technology, how the world around them was going to affect their business, and how do we make better use of the investments that we want to make in business tools and information and in the people. I think most people acknowledge that in the association space, probably in general, right? We're not generally bleeding edge. Some associations might look to be fast followers. Some look to let everybody else bleed and follow well on the heels of that, right? And I think probably in the data space, that's one area that, while as entities and in the professional sense, we've talked about rapidly accelerating sort of how we leverage the data economy. How do we leverage data to help our members be successful or help our trade organizations be successful? And I think one of the things that I've seen and I see with a lot of my peers is everybody's sort of leaning in on that front. We might be at different levels depending on where we're coming from and what organization we are, but there's a lot of interest and there's investment coming in those areas. Sometimes what's really hard for organizations to adapt to is the idea that it's not as simple as saying, we just want our data and we want to do things.
Right.
The data might be there, but it may be strung out in 15 different business systems that actually you can't relate the data from one to the other very easily, or you're dependent on multiple vendors, some of them very critical, and how do you put that data back together in a way that facilitates good information, usable information, actionable information? It's looking at engagement scoring, which for some organizations might be a bad word, but I think it's an interesting look at just what are maybe cohorts of people doing, what are cohorts of people that we can look at. How did these people move from being partially engaged to highly engaged? How did people move from being publishers of science to involving themselves in the governance of the organization? How does somebody move from being partially involved as a student to being the person that goes to our meeting every year? Which information is going to be there, but more importantly, how does that system relate to other business systems you use? So if you're not doing meeting registration in-house, how do you know that Ben attended your meeting? And if Ben gave you a bit of information when he registered for your meeting, how do you hold on to that information about Ben in a safe, secure way that's also usable? So when Ben actually subscribes to something, or when Ben takes advantage of continuing education, the journey that maybe Ben is on. And if you can't tie those things together, then you continue to operate in silos, and maybe the meeting knows that Ben's been there 10 years in a row, but the rest of the organization might not. But those two things matter. Where am I keeping the data, whether it's dispersed across other systems, but can I bring that data back based upon who or what did this or did that? There's a real recognition that marketing needs to know what meetings knows about their meeting, right?
Yeah.
And publications needs to know about what is happening in membership, and we want to know those things, and so there's this natural need now that's evolving and applies pressure besides sort of the data people saying, hey, this is really smart if you do this, I promise, right? Find ways to just democratize and make that data a little more available to everybody, that it also then harkens to an organization valuing it organizationally rather than departmentally. Now it's our meeting. It's not meetings meeting.
Oh, that's key.
There used to be a thing in technology, don't leverage the technology to change your culture, right? Because it's bad, because then you're changing the culture, but you really just need to change the culture, whatever technology you do. But I think that paradigm has slid a little in that technology has affected everything. And everything is interconnected. So you can't, it's really hard to say, this is just my stuff. Well, and there's a piece you hinted at the beginning of what you were saying, Gretchen, that I think is an interesting piece of data governance. Why are we collecting all this stuff? And are we using it? And sometimes you might collect because you're like, we think there's a use for that, and we need to have it down the road. But I feel you do need to ask yourself that: why are we collecting this? Is it applicable? Do we need it? How are we going to use that to benefit the people that we serve? Well, one of the challenges, maybe particular to the space that ASM is in, as a science publisher. What does this mean to that space? As you alluded to, Jake, I think you said, the plagiarism factor, who actually wrote it, right? And does it then extend even further into? The pace of AI right now is just it's incredibly fast, and it's transforming pretty quickly. So what does that mean in spaces where information production is protected and maybe valued and curated in particular ways that people are dependent on?